Hello and welcome to another episode of Aloe and Ace podcast. I am the Allosexual Skylar.
And I'm the asexual Jessie.
Jessie!
Skylar!
Before we get into asking how you are, we just want to give a trigger warning that this is a sexuality podcast where we primarily discuss asexuality. This episode, however, is all about ethical non-monogamy.
What? Finally?
So there's probably going to be a lot of discussion around sex.
And various things.
Yeah, that's not... Ethical non-monogamy doesn't mean that you have to have sex. Anyway, we will get into all of that. So just keep that in mind. And also what, Jessie?
Also, we're not professionals.
We are not professionals.
No, we're not.
Not even close.
Oh.
Well...
That wasn't nice. You don't have to remind me about all the schooling that I'm going to have. No, it's fine. What we're trying to say is we're not professionals. We speak off of experience and observation. We're not professionals.
Yeah.
Once again. So please reach out to a professional if needed.
Depending on what you're needing, there's probably a professional for anything that you want.
This is true.
Let's see what...
A variety of professionals.
A variety of professionals.
Yep.
We also would like to remind people that you can reach out to us in a plethora of ways.
Yeah, plethora.
And even email if you so choose. You can email us at alloandacepodcast@gmail.com. And we have a phone number in the US if you want to text message us, or you can call and leave a voicemail if you so choose. And that phone number is area code 385-645-3651.
We really will text you back.
And sometimes I will randomly text you a follow-up, how are you? So
There you go.
and that was a weird RR.
Maybe it was, but we're going to keep it.
Yes, we are. So Jessie,
Yeah.
how are you?
I'm doing pretty good tonight.
I don't know. Have we ever had any asexual sparks? Is that what we're calling them now?
Yeah, they're sparks. They're sparks because I think that they can be good sparks, interesting sparks, not good sparks. Can go a variety of ways.
How has your sparks been?
Well, I have a couple of funny stories. Well, no, wait. I have one funny story, and then I have one observation, I guess. Do tell?
Do tell.
Let's go. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll start with the observation because I want to finish with the funny. Okay, so I think everyone listening knows by this point that we have 6 kids between us, yeah? And we have a gaggle of teenagers, pretty much. I mean, 2 15s, 2 12s, and 2 9-year-olds. But I kind of consider the 12-year-olds teenagers. I know they're not technically, but they sure do.
Yeah, they're 12 going on 30.
No, they're 12 going on like 17, really. But yeah, it's interesting. And
well, sometimes your daughter does have the attitude of a 30-year-old.
You think so?
Yeah.
Okay, well.
She likes to give me the stink eye quite a bit.
Is that 30 or is that 17?
No, she's got that attitude. Like
Do 30-year-olds walk around giving the stink eye to people?
Like sometimes she is like, "Why are you telling me what to do? I own this place." And I'm like, "Oh, okay then."
She does not.
Oh, she does.
She has said that?
No, with her eyes, that is what she says.
Okay, but you know she's playing.
No, she is not.
Yes, she is. She is my child.
There is no playing.
Oh, okay.
Okay, 12 going on 17.
Anyway, so just to get a bit of background here, everyone here listening also knows that my 15-year-old is asexual, identifies as asexual at this time in his life. He really identifies with that.
The fluidity of that has not yet been determined if it'll change.
Right. And the fluidity can change at any point depending on where you're at, right? But I do think that there is a lot more fluidity as you are going through puberty and having those changes in those preteen, teen, young adult years. Lovely.
Well, and I also think, we talk about this a bit, not to derail too much, but
we're derailing.
Well, as an asexual person, I mean, really as any person, you don't know what you don't know.
That's true.
So his experience is his experience. He doesn't know that he's quote unquote different other than his friends reminding him.
Okay, but you have to be careful with that because that sounds really close to saying, well, you haven't tried that yet or experienced that, so how do you know?
That's not at all what I'm saying.
I think it could sound like it's in the same family.
I don't think so. What I'm saying is he doesn't know that, the feelings that he has are not anything other than his own feelings. So if that is deemed as asexual, then that's deemed as asexual.
Well, it's actually that he is saying, I have never experienced any feelings like this. So it's actually a lack. It's a...
I mean, it's not a lack.
I mean, technically,
from what he knows, because he doesn't know any different. That's what I'm saying.
Technically speaking, he knows that he hasn't experienced those things, and as far as he knows, he doesn't feel he ever will.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's what I'm saying is
the words get tricky here, folks.
Yeah, people have their lived experience, and unless someone tells them that that's not what the majority of people are experiencing, they would never know any different.
I can agree with that, and we have experienced that with myself.
Like even,
for sure.
So even Cody talking about, the A-stat device, they were on a podcast recently where they discussed that growing up, they thought that they were just gay. And when they got married...
A lazy gay person.
When they got married to a man, their husband introduced them to Tumblr, and it was on Tumblr that they started understanding their identity as an asexual.
Right. And didn't you say that they had referred to themselves as somebody who is lazy and gay?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So until Cody had the language to identify themselves, it wasn't in their vocabulary to understand asexuality. They just knew that they felt a certain way, and until they had the language to understand more, they didn't really know that they were anything but gay and maybe a bit lazy in the department of
pursuing sexual interactions.
Or not even sexual interactions, but just maybe sexual attractiveness or whatever.
I know, but I almost feel like, I wonder, I could ask Cody this probably, but I wonder if Cody relates pursuing sexual interactions with that's how you feel sexual attraction. So if Cody wasn't pursuing sexual interactions, then they could feel like they were being lazy, right?
Exactly. And
sorry, that was a little bit of a web.
I'm actually interested to read the latest book. So
yeah.
Anyway, so back to your story.
Wow, major derailment. Sorry, everybody. Don't know if it was helpful, but here we are. So anyway, with our 15-year-olds, they aren't incredibly social.
No, 12-year-olds?
No.
I thought we were telling you.
No. Just let me go. I'm getting to there. I promise. So with our 15-year-old sons, they aren't very, very social, and they keep to themselves. They're very into just specific things. So they haven't had, Skylar and I haven't had very many interactions as far as girls being girl crazy, being people crazy with romance, and
their involvement with wanting to pursue, be around girls and stuff.
or boys or anybody in a romantic sense, right? They have never said that they have any urges to make out with people or anything like this. So,
and when we do reference our kids being attracted to a specific gender, we have had discussions with them about, where they fit in that mold. So, at this time, I mean, your son isn't attracted to anyone.
No, he's asexual.
And mine likes girls at this point.
From what they've said, yeah.
Yes.
From what they've said. So, anyway, we haven't had any experience with, these kinds of discussions. So, with our 12-year-olds being, our daughters, they are very, very different from our 15-year-old sons. They are very, very social, and they have already expressed having crushes, etc. And so my 12-year-old went to a middle school dance last week. And when I picked her up, she was very excited. She got in the car and she was like, "Oh, Mom, I danced with a boy for 0.3 seconds." And she was just like almost hyperventilating with excitement. And I was like, "Oh, yeah." And, I recognize that this is completely and totally, in general, the norm for her age. However, it's not something that I really picked up on until I was maybe 15 or 16, as far as being giddy over a cutesy little thing like dancing with somebody, because I am a romantic, right? So I'm sitting here thinking, oh my gosh, like, she's so young. I didn't expect, I don't know how to handle this completely. And so I'm trying to just handle it logically and warmly. And, it's just interesting as an asexual parent, parenting a non-asexual, almost teenager.
Well, and the reason why I said what I said was because I want it to be known or reminded that we don't push like heteronormative relationships on our kids.
No, we just have open communication. Like, we talk about everything under the sun, and when they ask questions, we're honest and open and offer all of the information that they're asking, especially at the appropriate level that they're at.
Well, and it's interesting because, they are in middle school now, but I remember for myself in 6th and 7th grade, I specifically had crushes, and I was like carving a heart symbol in like my dresser or whatever. And so it is interesting where, our two oldest kids aren't doing that at all.
No.
And then,
not even a little bit, they're not.
Yeah, and then the two middle school ones are, but you said you didn't have that until 15, but I remember I had that probably in 6th, 7th grade. I started understanding that girls were developing and stuff like that. And
oh gosh, I had no thought of that. I mean, here's the thing. I did have like these little crushes, but it wasn't at the level like boy crazy, girl crazy. It wasn't at that level until probably 15 or 16.
Yeah.
Where it was like just like all this energy towards it. It was more like, "Ooh, that's funny." Like, it was just little. It was such a little crush for me in middle school. And then once I was in high school, I feel like that's when my persona really started to kick into place more. And so I had these conflicting feelings.
Yeah.
Where it was like, oh, I wanted to be romantic because I like cute romantic things, but I'm supposed to be doing this too with it, right? So it's just, we don't have a manual for this. And it's just interesting to look at the differences in parenting these 4 different kids that are entering, they're all entering teenagerhood, right? And they're so different, all 4 of them.
Our whole weekend consisted of her phone going off all weekend long, as well as her being on the phone for hours on end with
My daughter, yeah.
with her crush. So,
With her crush, yeah. So it's just, I wanted to just have that observation out there of it's interesting being an asexual parent and parenting an almost teen through this stuff. I don't know. I'm pretty nervous about it, but I think we're gonna make it through, especially because, well, you're not asexual, Skylar.
I'm not. Yeah.
So you add that not asexual flavor to the mix of parenting, which is great. Here we are. Okay. So
so now for the funny story.
Yes, the funny story.
Well, and this is going to let you guys know how open we are with our kids.
Right. At an appropriate level, I would say, of course. But yes. So Skylar and I were watching a somewhat adult show, I would say actually very adult show on Netflix, about a murder case. Okay, we'll just say that. And it was using very explicit language, sexual language, swearing, all sorts of stuff. And we were in our room with the door shut. Well, we hear these little pitter-patter noises outside the door, and then it stops. And I'm like, who's outside the door? And so we pause the show, and I'm like, who's out there? And my 15-year-old just starts laughing a little, like, hee hee hee. And I'm like, son, what are you doing? You can't just hover outside of our bedroom door. That's not a good idea. And I think he said, why? And I'm still talking with him through the door. Like I'm still laying in bed and he's still outside the door. And I'm like, because Skylar and I could be having sex and you could be hearing it. And Skylar's just looking at me, silently shaking his head like, don't say that. So my son goes, Mom. And he's saying this through the door. So it's still just this funny moment. Mom, you are a sex-averse asexual. You're not having sex in there and I know it. And I just start laughing so hard because I'm like, well, yeah, that's true. And I'm thinking that just shows just how openly we talk, that my 15-year-old does know that. So then, of course, I went over to the door.
Well, didn't he say, I will never believe that you're...
Yes, yeah. So I start laughing. He starts laughing. And he's like, I'm never going to believe that you're having sex behind that door. I'm just not, Mom. And so then I went and opened it.
Well, and you said, I mean, I could. And he's like, well, I would just walk away or whatever.
Yeah. And then I was like, I opened the door and I just tell him, really, though, it's not a good idea. Because what if we were? I mean, he put his foot down. He's like, you won't. I'm like, but what if we were? Then you'd hear it. And he was like, who cares? I'd just walk away. And I was like, well, I thought that would be mortifying, but apparently not. So it was just this funny moment of like, oh, yeah, I guess my kid knows me and he's old enough to know these things. And, you know, the two 15-year-olds know about the podcast. And every time it gets brought up in any way, it's like, you don't want to listen to it. I promise you don't.
Well, everybody knows about the podcast now because you were wearing the Aloe and Ace podcast shirt.
Oh, yeah, I was.
Dinner on Sunday, I think.
Yes, yeah.
And there became a discussion of what is the Aloe and Ace podcast?
Yep. And then I was like, it's an adult podcast. It's for adult ears. And then the two oldest kids kind of pressed it a bit. And I was like, if you want to hear about our sex life, go right on ahead and listen to it. But I promise you don't want to.
And then my son talked about how something about basically the evolution of human and how if everybody was asexual, then we would have all just died off or something. And
then we corrected him and said, just because you're asexual does not mean that you don't have sex. So it was honestly just such a learning moment. Anyway, so those are the two things. A little bit long-winded. Sorry, everybody, but I hope you enjoyed.
Well, we're 19 minutes in. Should we start the episode?
I guess so. And I feel like we have been lightly, not even lightly. What's less than lightly? Grazing? No.
Sure, whatever.
passing by. We have made passing by comments in so many episodes about ethical non-monogamy, and
Well, we did have the episode called All the Monogamies.
yes, but we didn't really get into it. And it's been a tricky one to try to feel comfortable with talking about, because for me, I don't want to have any particular influence in any direction.
Yeah.
And I want to just be so honest about it. So it's like, how much do we share? How much do we not share? All of that.
And we don't know if this will be a part 1 or if this will be the whole discussion that we have right now.
I don't know. Because guess what? We don't script any of this, and we just fly by the seat of our pants.
So I think that we should start off by, saying what is ethical non-monogamy, ENM for short. What does that even mean?
Well, do you think that that's subjective? Or are we going actual? What is the actual definition, though?
I would say that my understanding of what ethical non-monogamy is, it is when a couple or, however many people are in that partnership know about the situation, that there's boundaries that are being followed, and that typically they are also participating with other people who are doing the same.
Okay.
So the ethical aspect of it is that it's not through coercion or compliance or using a getting behavior, and also that the other partner is following any kind of guidelines that might be set.
I've never even looked at the definition of this, but I will say this. When you look up ethical non-monogamy definition, it is funny because it's like ethical non-monogamy versus polygamy. Oh, well, okay. ENM versus swinging.
Yeah.
It's interesting. There are several different flavors of this.
Yeah, I would say that ethical non-monogamy is the umbrella for the different aspects, which we'll get into.
Okay, so I want to give the AI overview here, just so we're all on the same page. But also, I just found out there's a master class, like from Masterclass.
Interesting.
The actual brand on ENM.
Cool.
That's very interesting. I didn't know that. Okay, so ethical non-monogamy is a relationship style where people have more than one romantic or sexual partner with the consent of all parties involved. ENM relationships are based on open communication, honesty, and consideration. ENM relationships can take many forms, including sharing partners. Some people in ENM relationships share partners. Separate relationships. Some people in ENM relationships keep their relationships separate. Casual sex. Some people in ENM relationships prefer casual sex. And thruples, quads, or polycules. Some people in ENM relationships hope to build lasting thruples, quads, or polycules. So that's the gist of it.
So I would say I was pretty spot on as far as what it meant to be ethical.
Right. It does go on to say, ENM relationships can have many benefits, including enhanced communication skills, deepened trust, a broader support network, personal growth, and a variety of rich experiences. Swinging is a popular ENM practice where couples swap partners for sex, and that's where it stops. I think it'd be kind of interesting for us to talk about each of these benefits that they went through. I think it'd be interesting to talk about the benefits, but then talk about how those same benefits can actually be the demise.
Yeah.
The non-benefit. What is that?
The destruction.
The destruction?
The contrarian. I don't know.
What is the opposite of a benefit? Drawbacks. The drawbacks. The same benefits can actually be the drawbacks as well.
And I guess the question is, well, why would we discuss ethical non-monogamy?
I think actually what I was going to say is I feel like we should probably give our listeners a little bit more background into why we feel that we can talk about it.
Sure.
and be in a good place, and then maybe go forward.
Which we have talked a little bit about it, but
I think we've been pretty vague. We've said,
Yeah.
we've had experiences, right?
but I think we even talked about how at the end of your marriage, you had opened your marriage.
Yes.
So I think,
Still quite vague, though.
yeah, so let's give a history lesson.
Okay, so I'm just going to briefly touch on that fact again. At the end of my previous marriage, without knowing it was going to be the end, my then husband and I decided to open our marriage to polyamory, which polyamory is more so the pursuit of more than one relationship.
Yeah.
It's not solely focused on just sex or sex with other couples.
Or it's not supposed to be.
Yeah, it's more love involved.
It's more looking for partners
Mm-hmm.
for
Like actual
long-term relationships. Polyamory is the multiple loves.
Yes. So we dipped our toes in that, and unfortunately, I mean, unfortunately, but fortunately, that's a little bit hard to say. It did shine lights on the issues. And that is exactly what can happen when you do this, which we will get into more. So all I wanted to say to that is that I had dipped my toes into that kind of living just a little bit, enough to actually lead to the destruction of my previous marriage.
And in your case, not to speak for you, but as an observer or as a reflecting on, while you had dipped your toes in it, it was very much innocent in what you were doing.
Yes, which is fascinating.
There had been, roughly 3 to 4 people that you have kissed at that time.
Yeah, maybe 4 or 5.
You're like, maybe 12.
All of a sudden, Skylar finds out this new information. Wait, what?
Well,
no, it was a small handful.
Yeah, and they're,
but that was it.
But mostly talking to people.
Yeah, a lot of talking.
A lot of talking to people. And it's not even, you didn't even have make-out sessions, really.
No, I didn't even want to, which is so funny.
From what you have told me. I mean,
right.
I wasn't there.
You weren't there, but that is exactly what happened. It was probably 95% talking and being flirty and cute. And then 5% was some kissing.
But this was...
And I'm an adult, guys.
But I mean, we're talking about you had been in a monogamous relationship since the age of 17.
Yeah.
Until 29.
Yeah.
And so this is 12 years of being in a relationship where you hadn't talked to anyone in that way.
No.
You hadn't kissed anyone. And so all of a sudden you're like, okay, this is interesting.
Yeah. And I'm not going to deny the fact that I am a fun flirt. Okay. And I know how to do that well, I would say. So it felt normal. It felt fine. And
you had gotten, we discussed this previously, but you had gotten the book Ethical Slut, which is still over there in your closet.
Yep.
And so that would be a good resource for a book if you're wanting to learn more about ethical non-monogamy. It's called Ethical Slut because it's the idea of it is to kind of break down the societal norms and barriers and understanding. So they're trying to be a bit more extreme by saying slut, but really it's a book about ethical non-monogamy.
And also at the same time, both myself and my ex-husband joined the local or state polyamory Facebook group. Yeah. And I will say that there was a lot of good information in that group as well, and support. There was some not great information as well, but it is out there. It is out there for sure.
So that was the beginning of your history in...
Yes, and I just want to make it clear, it's so funny to look back now, and I feel like it's so ace-coded now, looking back at my experience with doing that, because it never crossed my mind to take things further with anybody. Like I thought that was wild. If
Yeah.
anyone thought that that was going to be the case, I was like, why would they think that?
Yeah.
Why would I want to do that?
And that's where some of the me being a bit of a wingman was like, that this is what they're asking or what they're wanting.
Yes,
and
Skylar
you're like,
was
no,
my wingman.
No, they don't. No,
yeah, and I
I'm
didn't
like,
believe him. I was like, oh,
yes.
come on. They don't mean that. They don't want to have sex. Why would they want to do that?
Why would anybody want to have sex with me?
It's honestly comical to look back at it. I had even met somebody and I was alone with them for hours. And all that happened was talking. And I think in almost any other circumstance with most people, after talking to someone for a few months, that more would have happened for sure.
I mean, there
Right?
was a butt grab, hold, hug.
Oh, pish posh.
But that was it.
That was nothing. That was a joke.
Yeah.
That was for the joke, man. So anyway, just interesting looking back at that little toe dip there. And then I was with Skylar. So, and then Skylar and I were very much so monogamous.
Yeah, we didn't want anything to do with that at all.
No, I was probably pretty turned off to the whole idea of that because, well, it was painful at the end of my marriage and having that all happen. However, I was incredibly thankful to have obviously met Skylar through all of that. However, at the same time, Skylar and I started having really awesome, fun game nights with fellow ex-Mormons. And this is kind of funny because there is a show on Hulu. It's called Secret Lives of Mormon Housewives, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And in that show, Taylor describes going to a party and just one thing led to another. And all of a sudden they were, I think she even says they were playing Spin the Bottle. And I saw so many people saying, there is no way that leads to all of that. Yes, it does. Yes, it does, especially in culture or whatever you'd like to call Utah, where you have a lot of people leaving their religion and they've never experienced anything, and then they get a little wild.
Yeah, we've talked about the fundamental religions, which they're pretty hardcore in their teachings. Like, you are expected to remain a virgin until you're married.
Pure in quotation marks, yes.
Yeah, no oral sex, no intercourse,
no nothing. Like no drinking, no nothing. Like you literally get married typically in Utah very young, 18, 19, 20, and you don't experience any of that. And so you leave this culture, this religion, and you find yourself completely going on the other end of the spectrum and wanting to try all the things. And so, yes.
Well, and you have two people typically that have both not done any of that. But not only that, but they hadn't even explored their sexuality even on the split attraction model.
Nothing. They had done zero exploring. And that's actually the exact reason pretty much why it got brought up between my ex-husband and I. Because we both had this realization after leaving Mormonism that, whoa, we haven't experienced anything really. Do you want to do this? I don't know, maybe, I guess. So anyway, my point is, Skylar and I guess, like, it's not even a toe dip. Like, what would playing Spin the Bottle be? A splash? Someone splashes you?
A spray bottle?
Spray bottle from the pool? I don't know.
Spray bottle in the face.
We did think it was funny one night after playing games with all of our ex-Mormon friends. Well, I didn't think it was funny at first. I actually said no. And honestly, Skylar pushed it a bit. Skylar.
Yeah, I got in trouble for that.
He did. He didn't really respect boundaries that I was trying to put out there. But we've learned a lot from then. Anyway, so we did play Spin the Bottle. And I will say this, it was very PG. Like, honestly, it was PG. It was like 7th graders. And there was nothing too crazy that happened. There was just a bunch of pecking.
I kissed 3 or 4 guys.
Yes, for the first time you kissed 3 or 4 guys.
And I think 2 girls.
Yeah. And it was, what it showed me is that it went well, actually, which thank goodness for Skylar, because if it hadn't have gone well, that argument would have been way worse after the fact. But what it showed me is you can kiss people and it doesn't have to be that big of a deal, because I had worked up all of this emotion with it that how could you kiss someone and not feel something from it? You'll feel something from it. You're going to fall in love if you kiss somebody.
Well, and I was on the mindset of, can a guy kiss another guy if they're not gay? Like that's...
Yeah, so Skylar wanted to test his boundaries.
You know, that toxic masculinity of like, you know, with people saying like, oh, if you're a dude, you're not bisexual, like you're just gay.
Yeah.
But all these same guys are totally happy for women to do things with each other. Oh,
definitely. So there was a decent amount of little pecks going on that night.
Yeah, it wasn't like what is it, 7 minutes of heaven or
no,
whatever. There was no making out.
No.
It was
nothing like that. It was honestly
very
pretty
PG.
It was very PG. It was honestly kind of cute. It ended up being a big learning experience for me and made me see just how much you can kiss somebody and it means nothing.
Yeah.
I had wrapped up so much into that. And so that's Skylar and I's experience, I would say, for the first time into non-monogamy. Is that even? That's so situational.
I don't even know if I would class. I mean, I guess I wouldn't classify it as non-monogamy, but if you had that mindset, just generally speaking, then yes, I would. Like if you said, oh, you can kiss whoever you want, and I don't care. Like if you're out with the guys or the girls.
Yeah, it wasn't like that though.
And you want to kiss someone, don't care.
Yeah, it wasn't like that. So it was just very situational. But Skylar and I hadn't done anything like that with anybody or at any parties or anything.
And I don't think we had any thoughts about it afterwards. It's not like that opened the door at all.
Right. No, it didn't. It was just what it was, and then it was put away, and it was nothing. And then everyone joked about it for a very long time, and they still joke about it. So anyway, years go by now at this point. And throughout those years, I have repeatedly struggled every few months.
Which we talked about.
Yeah. Yes. Just lightly brushing on that, though.
Yeah.
Just what is wrong with me? Why I love you so much. I am attracted to you. I love being with you. I love cuddling with you. I love holding your hand. Why don't I think of sex? Why don't I want to initiate it? Why, when I finally get around to wrapping my head around it, why is it still just so difficult for me?
And I want to interject and put the air quotes around the attracted.
Yeah.
Because at the time, you did think that you were sexually attracted to me.
I did, because I didn't actually know what that meant.
Yeah.
I assumed that it was, well, I think that you're cute.
And I have sex with you.
And I have sex with you. And I'm in a relationship with you. So of course I'm sexually attracted to you.
Which is why we talk about you originally thinking that you were demisexual.
Mm-hmm, exactly. So this led to cycle after cycle every few months of just breaking down and feeling so bad and just having this breaking point of I should just be alone. I should just be alone. And so I started down this journey of trying to break down what I thought were walls, which we've talked about. I started buying books, and I think I have several of them still, which just make me mad because I sat there and tried to educate myself on my body thinking I could fix this. I can fix this. And none of it. I mean, I feel like I would read something and be like, Skylar, maybe this would help. We should try this.
And I was listening to the book on, I think, audio as well.
One of them?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I bought several.
Yep.
And I was on a mission. Like, I was like, I'm going to make this happen. Skylar and I are so happy in all the other areas, and this is my fault, and I'm going to do something about this. I can do this. And so the books didn't help. They didn't help me. And I was just left in the same cycle, and it sucked. So then I resorted to the next level of doing something about it. And that involved talking to someone online that had reached out previously that wanted to have sexy chat. That's what we'll say. And when they had originally reached out, I was like, yeah, fucking right. I'm not doing that. But after these books had failed me, I was like, well, maybe I need to get out of my comfort zone a bit. Maybe this could help. It's talking to a stranger. What's the worst thing that could happen? Maybe this will break down these walls or fix me, make me more sexual. So for about a month, I had daily conversations with this specific person where he was pushing the limits and telling me to do things. And I was taking pictures, that were great, by the way. They weren't bad pictures. They were sexy. And I hate it so bad. I look back at that month and I was full-blown persona mode like 99% of that month. I did have a few moments where he had suggested I do something and I was like, no, like I can't do that. And I couldn't bring myself to do it. But then what the second thought would be is, shit, what if it's the thing that would break the walls down though? So I pushed myself pretty far with it. All while having this be a complete stranger, never knowing who they are.
Well, and there was an aspect of you thinking it was working because
I did think it was working for
we
a bit.
ended up having sex like 22 times in
a month. Yeah. That's how much I pushed myself. We had sex a lot that month. Every day.
A year's worth of sex.
A year's worth of sex in pretty much a month period. And
well, at that time, a year's worth.
I was like, wow, this is amazing. I can do this. I can totally do this. And I was just doing it. And then that person had to end the relationship they were having with me online. And when that happened, I felt exhausted and relieved. And that's when it hit me. Oh, I didn't really make any progress here. I feel exhausted and relieved that this is over. So months went by, didn't they? Or was it a shorter amount of time?
I think it was shorter. It was basically from June to July.
Okay, you're right. It wasn't months. Gosh, it feels like it was. A little bit of time passed, a few weeks maybe, and...
Yeah, actually probably only like 2 weeks.
I was like, okay, that didn't work. What's the next thing to do? And it was like, maybe I just need to expose myself to my fears a bit more.
And at this time, obviously, as we've discussed, all of our friends around us
are involved in ethical non-monogamy. Yeah. So it wasn't hard to have conversations with a few of our friends and be like, hey.
Well, internally, you and I started having tiny amount of conversations.
Yes, and I was terrified.
Of like, oh, like if we did this with anyone,
who would it be? Who would make sense? Yeah. All of these things. And I was terrified, but I was like, I'm so sick of this. I'm willing to do whatever it takes. And I feel, it makes me feel sick for several reasons. It makes me feel emotional that I felt so broken and that I wanted to just be everything in quotation marks to Skylar, everything. That I was willing to do whatever necessary to be that for him because I didn't want him to not want to be with me. And in my head, I was convinced that sooner or later, this isn't going to hold up. Sooner or later, it's not going to be good. So the next step was to lightly dip toes into ethical non-monogamy. So we started having these conversations and we decided that we were going to maybe do something light.
Like make out.
Yeah. Like I wanted to see Skylar make out with somebody else and see how that made me feel. But it was going to be with a trusted person.
Yeah.
And then I was going to try to do the same thing and see how that felt. And so these discussions happened. We started talking to friends. And then we had some friends, another couple approach the situation, and they said, well,
Which they weren't in.
they
were some of our only friends who were not in ethical non-monogamy.
Right, which is kind of funny considering, but they said, well, why don't we try lightly and see what happens? And this is the part where I'm like, how much do we say? And
well, I do want to say one thing, and part of the reason that they said is they're like, we don't know a single couple who has ever done ethical non-monogamy that their marriage hasn't failed at some point.
The other couple said that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that was
we never would have thought that they would have stepped into this realm.
Yeah. So that was kind of their reasoning, if you will, of why they never thought they would ever do it.
Right. But because there was a good amount of trust built between us, they thought, well, this might be a safe option to see what this is like. And granted, this whole time I still don't know I'm asexual. And so it's just, it moved at lightning speed. I'm just going to put that out there. What started off as fun and games to lightly introduce things jumped so quickly to being so extreme, especially in my asexual brain that I wasn't aware of, that so much persona came out, so much. And all I kept thinking, oh my gosh, all I kept thinking was, if I just do this, then maybe it'll fix me. Maybe this will fix me. Maybe this will be the thing that fixes me. Maybe this will be the thing that breaks down the walls. Maybe this will be the thing that goes, sexual. Everything's so amazing and sexual and I love it. Like just one thing, maybe just this one thing. So even if I was scared and didn't want to, I would say, no, but I got to do it. Here's the point. This is the point we're at. So for a year, was it a year?
So
yeah, a year.
Yeah, it was from like July to August. Or July to July, essentially.
Something like that. For a year, Skylar and I were in the pool, I would say. We were fully in the pool of being ethically non-monogamous.
We were on the 30-meter high dive and just jumping off head first.
Yep. And I remember having so many conversations throughout that year of like, well, that's not how I look at it. And I remember trying to explain how I look at sex. And I'm like, well, it's not that I don't want to do it. I'm just happy to be a participant, and I'm so happy if you have a good time. And I remember the other person involved that I was with through this, they were, at first they were not happy about that. They were like, well, I don't want to do that with you if you're not in it, if you don't want to. And I'm like, well, it's not that I don't want to. It was so hard to find the words. I felt so weird.
And around the same time, we had met another couple that we really liked, and we labeled ourselves as the PG-13 friends because we were willing to like kiss them, but not go much past that.
Yeah.
Because we had arrangements with this other couple that we wouldn't be doing anything else with others that involved anything that could potentially transmit a STI.
Right. So we were in a full-blown relationship in an ethically non-monogamous full-blown relationship with this other couple for about a year. And I don't know, everyone listening, I don't know how I did it. I honestly don't, because it is so out of character for me. And I can't tell you how many times I just said, you just need to do this. Just do this.
Well, and
help you.
The funny part is that you were the one that had the least amount of issues with like jealousy or anything like that.
I did and I'm telling you what, through that year, we tried various situations to have happened. So when I say that, I mean, being in the same room all together, being in separate spaces in a house, being in separate spaces completely, you know? And I think before we decided to actually go ahead and have sex with other people, I got to a breaking point and I said, I don't care anymore.
Yeah.
I literally became so numb to it. I was like, I don't care anymore. And I look back and it kills me, honestly, because I'm like, but I do care. I do care. And I did care deep down, but I was so set. I mean, when I am determined to do something, it is going to happen.
There's no going back.
And I think a lot of people could say, oh, poor Skylar. Yeah, right. He enjoyed all of that. Are you kidding me? No, I don't think that's the case completely. I actually was the person that said, can we do this? I need to do this so that I can fully be with you. And I know that sounds bizarre probably, but in my head, it made sense. Like, what if this will fix me so that then we can have total happiness in our marriage?
Yeah.
I can be 100% everything to you. So we did that. And guess what? It exploded. But here's another interesting thing. There was never one time that Skylar and I questioned our relationship together. There was never a time where I felt disgusted or betrayed, where we openly communicated through every little thing that happened. And I will say this, with the other people involved, the four of us actually communicated pretty well as far as boundaries.
Yeah.
And if someone was feeling not great about something, so we avoided that or changed things up. We did a spectacular job. It was ideal for what the situation was. And for me, being in persona and not recognizing my asexuality, it was probably the safest situation I could have been in to be doing this.
Definitely.
Yeah. So, you know, there were several talks between 6 months and 12 months of this happening where Skylar and I would be like, how do you feel about this? And we would both feel pretty indifferent to it. But we're like, but let's keep going because maybe something can happen. That was mainly my language. But Skylar did feel indifferent in the same way that I did. So then it exploded. One of the people involved, one of the people in the other couple involved had a breaking point and they were struggling and jealousy happened.
Which is totally valid
Which
and
is
totally
completely
normal.
valid and totally normal. And the situation was handled hard. It was rough. There were things said that were really, really hard. Especially, I think, for me in my mindset, where this person was expressing pretty much regrets. And I'm sitting there thinking, are you fucking kidding me right now? This is so hard for me to do this. And I have decided to open up to this and do this. And you're sitting here having regrets and you're telling me it was hard. But we felt like the relationship with them or the friendship with them was worth it to try to communicate through it.
Yeah.
And get through it. And there was apologies had. And we did get through it when all that happened. And so I feel like, okay, and then just to catch up just a little bit further, a week or two later, I had my own experience with a female. And I felt nothing by it. And I had a crush on this female.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, this is probably a good opportunity to try this and see what happens and how I feel. And nothing was felt by it in those ways, in any sexual ways. And then, so that was one of the key moments of being like, why didn't I feel anything? I think it was a week later, Skylar said, do you think you might be asexual? Boom, everything clicks. Whoa, holy shit. The things that I have been putting myself through are insane. So, long story long, that is why I feel we can talk pretty well about it because we lived it for a little over a year. I would say pretty deep in. Wouldn't you?
Well, and as well as every friend we have practically
Well, yes,
is in some form of ethical
we're
non-monogamy.
surrounded by it, and we also lived it.
Yeah.
And the hard thing is, everyone, that like this isn't something we talk about. There are very few people that we have ever said anything to about this, that this happened.
I mean, I told my mom recently, and I thought I had already told her, but she was like, Skylar, you, what?
Yeah. And then I was like, Skylar, what? Why did you tell your mom that? But here we are talking about it.
I'm just like, I don't care. Like, who cares?
Here's the thing.
If anyone knows, I don't care.
Here's the thing. I am at a point where it's like, shame is not good.
Yeah.
And living in shame just hurts you more. And we have learned so much through all of these experiences. And that's why we're going to talk about it. And here we are ready to talk about it. I'm in a far better place than I was when we started 23 episodes ago. Right?
I will say, let's do a part 1 and at least a part 1 and part 2.
Yeah, because that took some time. I'm sorry. And I hope that by explaining more into our experience that it's been helpful.
Yeah, so let's keep this as part 1 as like an introduction to ethical non-monogamy and our history with it.
Yeah. I think the history's important.
Yeah, the history is important because it's like, why should I listen to you talk about it when you have no experience with it?
Yeah, I would hate for somebody to think that. And honestly, I'm ready to just speak openly about it.
Yeah.
While respecting others involved, of course.
So let's finish this episode with, well, why would an asexual couple, and by asexual couple, I mean typically someone who is in an asexual relationship where one person is asexual and the other person is not. Now, with Cody, they are in a polyamorous relationship with multiple partners, or their husband has other partners, etc.
Yeah, and they speak about that.
And they are aro ace.
Yeah.
So now, while the ace couple, the podcast of the ace couple, they're both asexual and very much monogamous.
Mm-hmm.
So why would an asexual relationship, or a couple who is in an asexual relationship, why would they want to possibly pursue ethical non-monogamy?
Do you want me to answer that?
Sure. Do you have an answer?
I mean, I think I could offer a few reasons.
Again, as we said from the beginning, this isn't us saying that it's necessary or even pushing it.
No, and I think we're in the space of the benefits, maybe. Is that what we're getting at here?
Well,
and then maybe in part 2 we can talk about...
No, I think we'll talk more about that in the next episode too, but I think we just want to leave off with why would you even? Yeah, why are we discussing this?
Okay. Well, for me, in my thought process, I feel like I actually think that it's important to open your mind to how you feel about it in general. So I think that we should start there.
Yeah, just a conversation of how do I feel about this, with a next question of why do I feel the way that I feel?
Yeah. So with that being said, I feel that if you are in a relationship as an asexual with an allosexual partner and they are expressing that they would like to have more sexual interactions, I think that that's probably the number one reason why it would get brought up. Would you agree?
Yeah. I think that whether you know about it or not, if you've never thought about it before, a lot of times when when a person comes out as asexual to their allosexual partner, and there's this discussion of my quote unquote needs not being met and stuff like that.
Right.
people start looking at, can I be in this relationship forever with no sex?
Right.
What does this look like?
Yes. So I very much so think that's the part where it's on the allosexual,
Yep.
but let's reverse that. Why would an asexual say, hey, maybe this should happen? And I think that an asexual could bring that conversation up because they feel bad.
Yeah.
They love you and they would like to continue being in a relationship with you at the capacity that they're able to.
But they understand
that maybe there could be some other creative options around it.
Yeah.
And there are several ways to go about that. So we can get into that in part 2. We can get into the benefits, the drawbacks,
and the varieties.
and the varieties in part 2.
Yeah.
I feel like saying sorry to everybody. I feel like we dangled a carrot a little bit. I mean, I feel like this episode was juicy, but I'm sorry, everybody. I'm excited to record a part 2 for you, though. This wasn't as scary as I thought.
Well, and maybe this is the opportunity. You know, we usually have a few hundred people listen like within the first week.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have any particular questions that you want answered, maybe you can email us your question around ethical non-monogamy.
Oh, yeah, that's a good idea.
And we'll see what that looks like, and maybe that could be a part 3, but at least there will be a part 1, part 2.
Yes. I'm almost like, are we going to be able to hold back on recording a part 2? I don't know. We might record another episode sooner than we usually do, but please submit any questions, comments, thoughts, feedback that you have.
And we will never use your name.
No, never. And if we even wanted to bring up something that was said to us, we would tell you.
Yeah.
Yeah, we wouldn't tell you, we would ask you. So don't have any worries there, but we love hearing from you regardless. So even if you don't have questions, comments, feedback about ethical non-monogamy, reach out to us anyway.
Sure.
Yeah. It's been great tonight.
Yeah.
And thank you for listening. And I feel like I need a hug.
Yep. I will give you a hug.
Oh, that's great.
Unless are you wanting a hug from somebody else? Do I need to get someone else to come give you a hug?
Yeah, we should probably talk about that. No, I'm just kidding. No, you can give me a hug. I feel like we're missing something. Saying goodbye to everybody right now.
We hope that everyone had a wonderful ACE week.
Yes, that's important.
And again, reach out to us. Even if you don't want to talk about ethical non-monogamy, but if you want to talk about anything else, reach out to us. We would love to chat.
And we'll be back later.
Yeah, have a good one.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.